Daybreak, 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 the Daybreak Show.
Just over the weekend, PDP had its presidential primaries and it was a rain of dollars. And before we even go to that, even in Ogun State, there was some primaries that was conducted, and like what some of our callers just noticed, in some areas, the election was not even, conducted. Some people just had to step down for some candidate who was chosen by some party members. So the question is, why or when did we start following this trend of kind of party primaries?
Well, thank you very much. I think the whole process started with our Electoral Act. And one thing I like to say is that political parties' way of conducting their primaries, while I agree must comply with democratic tenets, should be at the discretion of the political parties. In other words, we don't need to have a stereotype way of emerging as candidates of political parties. In other words, if the process in Party A is XYZ, the process in Party B may be KLM, so that you give choices, you give flexibilities for political parties in the emergence of candidates. What is important is that each and every political party must produce their candidate through democratic means. How you go about that should be at your discretion. But what we have in the new Electoral Act, one, the whole hulabaloo is about section 48.12, 48.8 and 9 of our new Electoral Act. Let me say straight away, that Electoral Act is yet to be tested. Now that primaries have been conducted, we're going to have a series of litigations all over the courts testing the provisions of this new Electoral Act. So I appeal to Nigerians to wait for decision of court. The one that has to do with section 48.12, which prevents political appointees who are aspiring from voted and being voted for, is already before the appellate court. Don't forget, a court in Umahia held that provision is unconstitutional. But of course, it has to be tested at the appellate court. Then we are waiting that. Then the controversial one, 48.8 and 9, that says, first of all, we have a constitution in Nigeria, I think it's section 223 or so, which says the process of political party, emergence of the leadership and what have you, should be by democratic process. Yes. Meaning that vote, I vote for you. However, section is it 84 now? 84.9, 84.8 is saying that party primaries should be by way of democratic process. What then is this democratic process you are talking about? You now complain that constitutionally provided for in the various political parties' constitution of how candidates should emerge, provide for super delegate, ad hoc delegate, call it statutory delegate. It's a process. If you have been this or you are currently this, you are a delegate. President Jonathan gave an example of his state at a paper presented at a book launch. He said, I have a constituency in my state, a state constituency has only 2 wards. There will be three delegates from these 2 wards to vote for who will be a member of the state assembly. There were 4 people contesting for that position. 6 people would determine out of the 4 who will be the candidates, because section 89.8 or so, no, 84.8 prevents super delegates. Yes. That means these people will determine who gets what for the state assembly. Take PDP for example. 1 person from each local government of Nigeria will converge in Abuja, who according to their constitution must be a delegate, a national delegate. How did these delegates emerge? I believe that political parties, with due respect, are not agency of government. that government will have to determine everything. Look at INEC. INEC says conclude your election by 3rd of June. And I read through the Electoral Act. I discovered that the provision says 180 days to the election. You must submit the list of your candidates. So why are we in a hurry? What has INEC said to achieve? Now they now say, oh, we are giving you 1 week again. When has political parties turned to a department in INEC? We have Electoral Act. We have the Constitution. So the whole problem started with the, laws that have been passed by the National Assembly. And I want to believe that we should, that's why we have so many amendments. People were saying that since the emergence of the US Constitution, there have been few amendments. You can discover the number of amendments that we have had in this country. So the problem is not the participant. The problem is from the law itself. Until we begin to look at it, the National Assembly, for the reason best known to them, quickly passed that Electoral Act, forgetting that they too will be prevented. And as I found President Jonathan's opinion very appropriate. What has happened to the legislative aides in the National Assembly that they didn't discover all these things? What has happened to the National Assembly legal department itself that they could not point out that, with the passing of this amended Electoral Act, you are depriving a set of people opportunity to participate, even in their political party. So the problem is not in the delegates, so to say. As for people who says, okay, this one step down for the other, I think that's a political arrangement. If I weigh my chances and I discover that, look, it is better I say you go, so next time I'm expecting support from you. It's all part of political process. I don't see how it become undemocratic.
Well, people have the opinion that since it's democracy happens to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people, that the people should have more say when the parties are deciding who the candidates are going to be. Because, I mean, a few set of people will come and tell you, okay, this is the candidate we are picking for our party, then the whole nation will have to, okay, let's pick between just these two people, whereas there are other people there who are more, credible and, qualified to also contest, but because of the party, they have to step down. They are not willingly, but because they have to obey the party lines, they just have to step down.
The issue of people's participation, when I say people, the generality of our people participation will have to be at the general election. If you opt out of being a member of a political party, then wait until the emergence of that candidate, and then you now choose between the candidates that political party and the other, and then come to a conclusion as to who you want to give your votes to, provided your vote counts in this country. So it's not about participation. It's participation by those who are choosing to be members of political parties. Produce a candidate for us. Don't forget, in virtually all the political parties' constitutions, you have provision for direct and indirect primary. Some believe that if you go through direct primary, which Nigerian says is more democratic, I agree. But the process is too cumbersome. You have to target, in Ogun State, 236 wards. At the same time, to say yes to one man in Abuja that the man selling milk and sugar in my ward do not even know. I have not even heard about him. You now say, oh, these are the presidential candidates of the party. And because, the constitution of the party and the electoral says it must be by direct. Then you start queuing up behind a photograph, or you start writing names. You have never met the man. That is from the lowest level, then to the local, to the territorial, and then state, and what have you, to the national. Well, if that is a process, I agree. But it's cumbersome. If political party now decided to go on indirect primary, how did the delegates emerge? Should be the responsibility of the political party. You can choose indirect, provided you give people opportunity to express their view. And say, okay, 3 of us, let's contest for it. We need 3 delegates from this ward. And then I come out, you come out, somebody else comes out. And then we present ourselves to members of our political party in our ward. And they say, oh, let Wale Ajayi goes to go and represent us as a delegate from this ward at the state assembly election in our state constituency. Then others will converge. Then we'll pick the candidate for purpose of the House of Assembly election. So it's a process. So I believe it should be the discretion of political parties to choose the mode of emergence of their candidates.
Okay, Honorable, now let's look at the PDP primaries that took place over the weekend, and it's not the first time that this is happening. It happened in 2019, it happened in 2015. That is talking about the monetization of elections in Nigeria. How can we be able to get a credible candidate without being coerced with money?
Well, I think the starting point is enlightenment and ensuring that we criminalize such barbaric attitude. If people are not enlightened, that once you take your $5,000, those big money, that's about 600 times that's 5,000. I know what that is in Naira. If we don't enlighten our people, are you saying that if the process has been by direct primary, you think the presidential candidate sitting down there in Abuja or in Katsina or in Owerri will not have people like me as his representative in the remotest ward in Nigeria? And then so the Naira will still reign through the man down to me, and then I begin to share at the world level. So it does not matter that people are going to Abuja to collect dollars. It's about how do we stop it? How do we stop it? So it's not the delegate system that really produce this kind of attitude. Poverty is there. The caliber of people that will send to be our delegates also is a determining factor. And now that section 80, what's it now? I always forget this particular section. You know, the controversial section of the Electoral Act says delegates have been excluded. The so-called super delegates is all about who is holding this current position. X this, X that. They are super delegates. You know, sometimes if I collect from you at my level, I may have some thinking that I should not collect from Agumeria as, you know, candidate and say, oh yeah, bring your own. My brother, your own. You go to A, collect money, go to B, collect money. If you put some, I don't know how to put it, some responsible people, even if I go with you and you still insist that, oh, I must take it to be sure that I will vote for you, I won't go to her. And at least I will look at the end of the day, what if she gets to know that I collected her money, I didn't vote for her? Why should money be the primary responsibility? So let's begin to enlighten Nigeria, whether at any level, that this attitude of collecting money is you are collecting your future. That's number one. Number two, have you checked our Electoral Act or various laws to criminalize this attitude? When you say, you know, when you look through the Electoral Act, you will find some criminal acts, you know, stuffing ballot paper, this and that. These are criminal acts that you can always charge people to court. What about bringing money for purpose of primary election? The giver and the taker. So the National Assembly should not just sit down there. Now that we have seen it, that is becoming an embarrassment to the entire, you know, political process in Nigeria, let's begin to address it. And the very first point is enlighten our people on the effect of that, and secondly, let's criminalize such act.
Honorable Ajayi, before you go on, you talked about enlightenment. Now Nigerians should be enlightened, and it's been 23 years of uninterrupted democracy, and we're still talking about Nigerians not being enlightened. How else should Nigerians be enlightened? When should they be enlightened? How will they be enlightened? where will they be enlightened if all that has been going on has been about talking about democracy? I know that, we have been talking about democracy and enlightenment on this radio station, on other radio stations, newspapers, on social media, name it. Yet we keep saying Nigerians are not enlightened.
Well, firstly, you have to appreciate the fact that there is poverty in our land. How we get to that, then all of us must address it. The government, and of course our own people. Government first, because it's the responsibility of the government to provide for basic needs of the people. For crying out loud, tomorrow if you are contesting councillorship election, you will find those Nigerians that I cannot imagine the number of promises that you will give. The first they will do, at the end of the day, after saying I will do this, I have been trained as this, I have been trained as that, I want to go and represent you, to bring that democracy, to bring that dividends, to ensure that you get your... After all that, the next that the man or the woman over there will say that, so the mindset of politician now is that no matter how good you are, no matter how brilliant your intention may be, the next you start doing is to go to bank or find a way of embezzling the money, load your pocket, begin to approach the electorate, because the electorates in Nigeria will ask you, what have you brought for us? How did we get to this level? I still don't understand. When I started as a counselor, and I remember in those days, those babas were telling me, lawyer, this counselorship is too much for you. Yeah, I started very early, as a young lawyer. I told them, no, I don't want anything. I want to be a counselor. Now at that time, the pressure is that how can you be a lawyer and then the next you approach it is counselorship. I said, I want to start from the scratch, from the beginning. Maybe because of the orientation, this Aluta thing I was bringing from Ife and the rest, it's all about, I want to be the representative of our people. And the best I can do for now, regarding my experience, don't forget we are not talking of student union politics now, we're talking of real local politics. Let me start from the scratch. And they were telling me, they were willing. Even as at that time, you still have some people who say, after you talk all this and then they say they still expect 100 naira, because that matters a lot then. To now say, Baba, Egba, Kefira and come, So it's all about mindset of our people. That the assumption is that you are going there to steal. So bring part of what you are going to steal. And they believe that the moment you get their vote, you are not coming back until probably the next election. And the whole of your 4 years is all about amassing wealth, stealing money. Nothing more. So the mindset is there. That now that you are going, I will make sure that I collect the one that I know that I am satisfied. So the best way of doing this, as I said, is that let's continue to talk to ourselves, and secondly, criminalize it and then ensure that you make scapegoats out of the people. If you don't do that, the process will continue.
Alright, still talking about this primaries, the issue of infightings and actually physical fighting as well during primaries. We had lots of delegates rather and supporters on the day of this primaries coming out and actually have been involved in physical fighting, and some talked about delegates list as well, that their representatives were not there, or those who they wanted to vote for were not included in the list. How can we actually curb this? Because this has become one too many. It tends to be that at every election, either primary or general election, we tend to have, people coming out, electorates coming out, or better still, rather, delegates coming out and supporters coming out and actually fighting. And before you know what, we tend to say that, okay, they're actually hoodlums taking over the space. How do we curb this?
Thank you. Number one is the fact that our people, I'm sorry to say, are jobless. Why will somebody, I am not a delegate. I don't have a role to play. As a member of a political party, have done my bit. That is the process of electing delegates from my ward or from my local government. What am I doing in Abuja? And if I'm in Abuja, what am I doing at the venue? Why is it that I am not part of those who will choose the presidential candidate and I find my way to Eagle Square or wherever it's taking place? And then the next is that I'm abusing the candidate, another candidate. And then that leads to anger and what have you. I'm not too sure that you, my brother here, you have that time to go there. If you have to go there, you are either saying that you want to go and get part of the dollar rate for you to go there, and then, otherwise you'll find something meaningful to engage yourself with. So that is the first one. So where is the job? And what are we doing? What kind of innovation are we bringing to the table? Look at it. Everybody cannot be in court as a lawyer. Everybody cannot be a presenter, a mass communicator. But you must have a vocation that you are doing. Government must be ready, to provide the enabling environment so that you don't have a lot of people who have nothing to do, so as to become, the tools in the hands of, desperate politicians who want to emerge through all kind of means. Until you have a way of preventing that, you will still have people. When you say you are going to Abuja now, you can imagine the number of buses that will leave this Ogun State to Abuja. Perhaps the delegates themselves would love to go through, flight. But the supporters, who are they supporting? Are you supporting the delegates, or you are supporting the presidential candidate? Through what mode? So these people don't have things to do. That's number one. The government is not providing the needed job or the needed environment for them to be able to find something meaningful to do. And then the other one is the desperation. In some other climes, when you bring, even in the party primaries, you bring, a packet of sugar with my photograph and start distributing it to people. It's bribery. It's bribery. It's not about. But here, if your colleagues, your other aspirants are doing it and you are not doing it, our people will tell you that I don't think it's serious. Somebody is bringing rice, 1 Congo of rice in a seal, nylon with my photograph and inscription, my name inscribing on it. I am distributing that. If there is no law that prevents you from doing that, if you are not going to face any consequence for doing that, you will do it. Then you will undermine me that is not ready to do it. And then you will get there when I have the capacity and everything to get there. But I'm trying to be a real, Democrat. Use the word Democrat, who believe that the process should be transparent enough. Again, the law must approach all this. And that law must be effective. The implementation must just be ready, that we will do it. I read in on the media, that EFCC was at the PDP primaries. They flooded, but I've not heard that one man was questioned by the roadside by the EFCC. Is it that when they have gone back, collect my money, have returned to Bayelsa or come back to Ipokia here, that we now say they should go and produce me because I collect money. I don't really understand. I'm not a security expert, but what they've gone there to do is still not. And then have they checked the laws? Is there anything preventing all that? Except you ask the giver, where is the source of the money you are giving people? And once he's able to explain, I don't see what the EFCC will do.
Okay, Honorable, from what you've told us so far, it's obvious that the Nigerian political mentality is warped. So how can we correct this? Because most of those that are supposed to make the law are still the same politicians that indulge in all this, politicking, like buying votes and, encouraging people, like give to, win their votes. So how can we get this thing right?
Let's begin from somewhere. Let's start by mounting pressure on the legislature to begin to address this issue through the lawmaking process. After all, we do protests, we do all that to the National Assembly. Yeah, let's start. Begin to tell them that you have to put a section in the Electoral Act that will make some conduct or actions criminal. And let's begin to tell our security agencies that, look, you have to begin to make use of these laws by bringing those who engage in these acts to book. Until we begin to address that, the system will continue. I've told you, see, if you don't force them to put it there, politicians are preoccupied about 2023. After 2023, by 2024, we'll start the process of 2027. Like that. It's all about elections. Nobody is addressing the issue of poverty in our land. Nobody cares. Again, when last are we talking about the security, issues in this country? Everything is about election. Everything is about election. And when we do the election, then we'll go back to square one. After 2 years, politicians will start preparing. And Nigerians, with due respect, some of us are gullible and we continue to, play along until probably everybody does his own and then quit the stage. Then leaving nothing for the incoming, generation. So it's a serious issue. It is a serious issue. The process, see, I talk about enlightenment. Maybe we don't know. How do you tell the man that has a mindset that the man talking to me who wants to go to assembly, state legislature, cannot provide housing, roads, but can make laws and can assist in, mounting pressure on the executive to do the needful in your constituency? The man voting, is he even aware of what you are going to do? He's telling you that when you get there, how will you provide car for me? Is that what we're talking about? That is the mindset. So when I talk of enlightenment, I think that's the starting point. You have to appreciate the fact that somebody going to lawmaking house is not an executive man that can go and put pipe on water in your ward. Until you begin to appreciate that, so that when I begin to address the people and say that I will do this, they know that I'm telling lies. And they say, hey, okay, you meet us on the election day. You've come to tell lies again. But they don't know. So how would they get to know? How would they get to know? We have to continue and then ensure that we make sure that people are prevented, from engaging in money sharing politics. If you are not giving the electorate and I'm not giving, and we are both aspiring, then how would they insist that somebody must give? So at the end of the day, I don't give, you don't give. They will still need to exercise their franchise. At best, 10 out of 40 people will come out, and the remaining 30 will say that they didn't give us anything, so we are not going out. Is that not better for us? But once you engage in that, I will also struggle to make sure that I get money to give the electorate.
But some candidates right now who are aspiring for political posts, especially the presidential ticket, are already planning on the campaign to other parties so that they can be the flag bearer of the party. And because of this multi-party system, it gives them the advantage to be able to do that. What is your own view about Nigeria's multi-party system?
Well, thank you very much. I think it is generally accepted that multi-party democracy is the best form of democracy because it gives you opportunity. But the way we go about it in Nigeria is another thing. If I don't get what I want in party A, then I quickly move to party B, regardless of the ideology, what that party stands for, when it's not in line with my own belief. But people have come out to say that in Nigeria, the politicians and their political parties don't have ideology. So you cannot pinpoint. What you have is programs of political party. And you can say, oh, this one is engaging in welfareism. This one called itself Democrats and what have you. But a clear-cut ideology is not just there. Let's just admit that. So it gives an opportunity to people to move from one place to the other. People have asked several times that, why is it that only in Nigeria, when you have this set of people in party A today, if anything should happen to that political party, the next is that all of them will be in party B. And then when you look at the history of the two major political parties in Nigeria since 1999, it's the same set of people. I have not seen a brand new individual that has come that has no background in any of these two political parties. So the problem is that we should allow our political parties to grow. Let's allow. See, some said that when we had this SDP and NRC, maybe if we have developed along that line, perhaps suggesting also that we should also have other political parties, then maybe we'll have fare better than we are now. But we still have time. It's a developing process. So we cannot say because of carpet crossing, then we should jettison multi-party system. No, it will not give people the opportunities. But what we should do is through our electoral laws, we should try as much as possible to, curb if we cannot totally eliminate carpet crossing. And you see, our courts are now living up to expectation in terms of carpet crossing. In the recent times, you have a situation where, when you're moving from a selected functionary of a political party, and then you move from party A to B, the courts are now questioning your motives and the reasons and what is happening in your political parties. For instance, a legislator who wants to move from party A to B must satisfy the court that there's a crisis in his own political party that's enable him, being the reason for moving to another. If you cannot establish that, then they say you will lose your seat because you have not fulfilled the provision of the law, of the constitution relating to that carpet crossing. That's one area. We're getting there. People elected, functionaries are now being more cautious of such carpet crossing. Then we can begin to, look to some other areas of doing that. Don't forget that is now being tested, through the court. The executive own is now being tested through the court. The PDP went to court. I think they got judgment in Abuja as to carpet,
crossing.
As to the members of the executive. So by the time we get to the appellate court, it will be, we have a clear-cut decision of appellate court on that. Whether as a member, as a chief executive of a state or even of the federation, I can move from party A to B. And then let it become an issue. And I'm not trying to be sentimental or do anything, but it was an issue in the last PDP primary because vehemently Governor Wike of Rivers State, as a presidential candidate of PDP, kept on mentioning this issue. Don't vote for people that have left the party and only returned, or people that at one time or the other made the party to lose the election. It's becoming an issue. Believe you me sincerely, it is something that is sinking into the head of some politicians now, that it could be used against you. So you better stay if you know that you are still looking for, and build the party together. I'm not saying that has helped in any way Governor Wike, but it's an issue. It came into the front burner, and people are beginning to say, okay, let's look at it. It's making some point. Why should you leave? And then I want to use the mandate of this same party that you have assisted in destroying. Let me use the word destroy, quote and unquote. So it's not about multi-party system. It's about the practice of democracy. So let's have parties, but let's develop our political parties and curb this carpet crossing of a thing. Once we are able to achieve that, then our political system will begin to grow more than this.
Daybreak. The Daybreak Show.